It's a Monday edition, orange and blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason, and me. A special show that we have been looking forward to for at least a couple of days because we're going to talk to one of our best buds.
Yeah, one of our best buds who put something into the public consciousness that as I was sitting there watching March Madness over the weekend, saw this and I said, hey, we got to have our good friend on and talk about this because, as an old commercial would say, this is a spicy meatball.
Yes, very spicy meatball. So we go, and we are joined today by our good buddy, Chad Reuter. He's from NFL Network, and you have a mock draft out now, Chad, that's got to get Broncos country excited because it has them moving up for Tyler Warren. So I just began with merely this. Evan Engram didn't change the draft plan for you?
No. There's a reason that Evan Engram was available for the Broncos to get well into the free agent cycle, right? Like, this guy is not a franchise-moving player. However, he is a good player. And if you pair him up with another guy in a two tight end set, Bo Nix look pretty good. Running game's going to look pretty good. Sometimes when a talent falls into the early teens, a team will go get him. And I think it makes a lot of sense if Denver goes up and get Mr. Warren.
Okay, so a lot of mocks out there have had Warren going off the board in the first 10 picks.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you see Tyler Warren maybe lasting a little bit beyond here to where in your scenario, you have him falling to pick 12, and that's where you have the Broncos trading up with the Dallas Cowboys?
Look, Brock Bowers was probably my favorite player in the whole draft last year, and he lasted to 13. So, like, it happens. And Warren could go as high as 7 to the Jets, or he may fall into this area. Maybe the 49ers would take him at 11. There's a lot of different scenarios. But if he's available at that spot and Dallas is willing to get out of that spot for extra draft picks, improving their current draft picks, and Dallas has moved out a couple times in the past 5 years already. So, it makes a lot of sense. You know, Sean Payton, when he was in New Orleans, was part of some pretty big trades in the first round. And so he's been willing to make those kind of deals to that. And in my scenario, they're really not giving up much. I mean, you're giving up your second round pick, but you're getting a fifth. So you're just changing the value of that pick. You're not giving rid of a selection. And so it is something, but it's not the end of the world. And you get the guy, maybe that's at the top of your board left. It's got something to have to consider.
Is there a Bowers bump, though? I remember when Ted Ginn was drafted, I believe in the top 10, correct me if I'm wrong, like 9.
Yeah.
I said that was like a Devin Hester bump. Is the Bowers bump for Warren, Chad, or could it
Maybe
be for the rest of the class? Because if someone sees a bold move like this and the Broncos move up to 12 for Warren, does Loveland go earlier? Does Arroyo go earlier? Like, is there a Bowers bump based on the success the Raiders had with him last year?
Possibly, but I think you still need to have the elite talent for that bump to really come into play, in my sense. So, like, I think Colson Loveland could go 13 or 14, and that's one reason that the Broncos would make this move. A lot of people just assume that Loveland's going to last until 20, when the Broncos pick, and I don't know that that's the case. Indianapolis could take him. Other teams could take him. So I think there could be a little bit of a bump there. But to be honest, I think tight end is still a position that some teams are reluctant to take an elite guy at, or, use a top 10 pick on, and especially if the Jets decide they really want Jackson Dart as their guy to put with Justin Fields at quarterback. If that happens, then, maybe the Bears take him, maybe the Saints take him. The Saints just spent a bunch of money on Juwan Johnson, so maybe they're not in that market anymore. At first, I thought that would be a great fit for Warren. So a lot of scenarios there, but I think sometimes a guy just falls a little bit further than we think.
So the difference between Loveland and Warren and and then the next group of tight ends, you get into the Terrence Ferguson's, Gunnar Helms, Elijah Arroyo's. How much do you think that difference is worth trading up versus standing pat and then taking care of tight end on day 2, especially when you do have an Evan Engram who you can plug in for a year or two, and that gives you a longer runway to more slowly develop a tight end like Arroyo, who might need a year to really be ready to contribute.
Well, I think the difference between Warren and Loveland and the rest of the class, what's about 1,000 miles between Wisconsin and Denver? That's probably about it. I mean, look, there's some really talented guys that are going to go in the second and third round, but Warren and Loveland are a step above. And I think, frankly, when you get an Evan Engram, a guy like Colson Loveland, maybe they're similar in terms of what you would expect from them as a receiver and things like that. So that's the other reason, like maybe Warren just carries that little bit more weight for a team like Denver, who wants maybe a little bigger size, a little more of a blocker, that kind of stuff for the run game. So I think I don't know that they would move up for Loveland, but I think if Warren was available, they'd have a little more. But I think there's a pretty sizable gap between them and Mason Taylor, who might be the next one off the board in the second round. I think it's a pretty sizable gap.
Full disclosure, Chad, I always like to run my crazy takes by you, because if they're too crazy, I won't say them. And if you think they're okay, then I'll continue to say them. I've said on this show, and I might have said to you in Indy. Indy's kind of a blur.
Yeah.
Is Tyler Warren the best, whatever you want him to be, and Colson Loveland's the best tight end in this draft? What do you think about that?
I think that I would say that Warren is the most rounded, and Loveland might be the quickest tight end, maybe the quickest receiver. I really compare them to, like, honestly, Colson Loveland's game's a lot more like Brock Bowers. I mean, he's a lot more like than that game. And it sort of reminds me when the Packers took Luke Musgrave in the second round and Tucker Kraft in the third round. Tucker Kraft is like Tyler Warren, and Luke Musgrave is like Colson Loveland. And so I think Kraft has shown himself to be more than – he should have been a second-round pick, but he went in the third round, small school, whatever. And I think Warren can do a little bit of everything, like you said. But I think it's really more of, do you want the smaller – pure receiver, or do you want, like you said, a guy that can block and run and all that different kind of thing? Yes. So yeah, you're right. Like, he is a top 10 worthy player in this draft, regardless of position.
Where does, and we mentioned Brock Bowers earlier, but where does Tyler Warren stack up compared to, say, a TJ Hawkinson of 6 years ago, for example?
Yeah, and I thought teams might value him because he went, 8th overall, I think, to Detroit, and I thought people might, and they still might value him in that area because he's that good. I think Warren is a better player than Hawkinson overall. I think he's more versatile. I think, it's going to be interesting to see if he works out what his numbers are, because he's going to be like 265 pounds, which is heavier than Hawkinson, and he's going to put up some pretty good numbers. His agility is pretty special. He's going to run faster than people think. So for me, he's more just a better all-around player in terms of and he's certainly a more all-around player than Kyle Pitts and all that stuff. So in terms of where I place him in the draft, I would certainly have him higher than 12. But, look what happened with, guys fall in the middle of the draft. Kyle Hamilton has a bad 40 and he goes 14. I mean, that stuff happens all the time. And Bowers, again, is another example. So I just try to look out for those kind of scenarios and present them as if, hey, don't make any assumptions about this guy just because he's, a really good player.
He's Chad Reuter, NFL Network. You can check out his work at NFL.com. And I feel like the odd man out because I'm not in Wisconsin with y'all. But when we look at this tight end class as a whole, and you've called it kind of a double draft, not really a double draft, but kind of a double draft, even though the Broncos have Evan Engram, and even though in your mock they move up for Tyler Warren to number 12, it's very exciting. Is there a late round guy that you would pick up as well? They have 3 6th-round picks.
Yeah.
So with one of those 6th-round picks, I don't know if he would be there, but like a Luke Lachey, somebody like that, would you, in this kind of class being so deep at that position, is it okay to double up even though you got Evan Engram?
Yeah, I mean, I think the value's there in the 6th or 7th round. I think that's fine. Like I said, Evan Engram is a good player, but guys get injured. And if you want to run a lot more 12 scheme, you're going to have multiple guys there. And, Adam Troutman's fine. But look, if the best guy on your board is another tight end in the 6th round, Thomas Fidone from Nebraska, for example, something like that, then yeah, you take him, because heck, do 13 personnel, put them all on the field. And a guy like Warren, if you get Warren, you could use him in the backfield. You can use him in different areas. You can get really creative. And, that's something that Sean Payton's pretty good at.
Now, of course, in your mock draft, you go 4 rounds deep. And in your scenario, you have the Broncos trading out of the 2nd round to get Tyler Warren. Now, as we sit here recording this today, the Broncos haven't addressed running back in free agency. Mm-hmm. At the combine, they had formal meetings with, we know of 10 running backs with whom they had formal meetings. They've been fanning out to the pro days to check out running backs the last few days. You've got them taking Arizona State's Cam Skattebo, one of the running backs with whom they had a formal meeting, in the 4th round. First of all, with Skattebo, do you see him as somebody that, if the Broncos got him in the 4th round, somebody that could step in and instantly be a starter and answer for the Broncos at running back?
Well, he's certainly going to step in and contribute immediately. I mean, I think that's what the expectation is of any rookie running back nowadays. The issue with him is he's had conditioning issues in his career. He had to work on it a lot before his senior year. Coaches had to kind of, prod him a little bit and say, hey, if you want to be an NFL back, you got to do this. And even when he's blowing up in the playoffs with Arizona State and, he's making all these plays, he's looking great. In the 4th quarter, he's on the sideline because he is gassed, right? And you can't have that if you're going to be a 25 carry a game back in the NFL. And I don't think they need him to be that. So if you're able to get a guy like that and give him 15 carries and let him do his thing and run over people, it's more difficult to do that in the NFL than it is in college. And that's part of the thing he'll have to work on. But yes, he'll step in immediately. He's going to be a big back. And the thing is, with Estime already in the mix, I don't know how that necessarily works, but look, if you want to pound the ball, you have 2 guys that will just pound the ball, and that's fine. Defenses won't like it very much in the 3rd and 4th quarter. They'll be getting tired. They'll be tired of seeing these guys running through contact. So maybe they go for that 1-2 punch and just really, lay it down against defenses.
Who's the most Alvin Kamara like back in this draft?
Nobody. I mean, I don't like comparing to guys like that, but look, I guess I would have to go. I don't know. I love Quinshon Judkins so much. I don't know if I can go with him as that sort. I don't know that I'm ready to crown one of these guys, as the late Denny Green once said. I'm not ready to crown him that good, that kind of player, that kind of special player, to be honest. I don't know that there's one in this class.
It's not Travion Henderson?
He to me is not quite that, but he's got the dual threat game. Obviously, that's going to be his calling card. But I don't know if he's as special as Kamara as a runner. In terms of power, because Kamara's got power and speed, and I don't. That's not Henderson's game, but he's going to be a really good change of pace back for somebody. And that, Dallas would love to have a guy like that and pair him with Najee Harris. That would be or not Najee Harris, but Javonte Williams, who just came from Denver. That would be a good pairing, I think, for them. So that's what I like. But I don't see that kind of special guy. Like, I remember when Kamara came out, I'm like, this guy's a 3rd round pick. Seriously, he's way better than that. And I don't see that kind of guy this year.
So overall, what do you think of this running back class? Is it as good as some are making it out to be?
Certainly deep. You're going to have 20 guys picked on day 3, most likely. And that only happens every 4 or 5 years or something like that. It doesn't happen too often. You're going to have some guys in the 5th and 6th round that are going to contribute right away. Kyle Monangai from Rutgers, for example, he's going to be like an Isaac Pachenko out of Kansas City. That kind of guy who's going to be like, hey, this guy's really good. Why did he last that long? Cecil's guy, Devin Neal out of Kansas, he's probably going to be like a 5th round pick or something like that. And he's he's a pretty good player. And there's just so many guys. And that's the problem with running back, that teams know they can get these guys a little bit later. So if you're not an elite talent, they're going to wait on that and try to pick up some other positions. And then they'll address that position, on day 3 sometimes. So we see that all the time. And I expect rounds 4 and 5 to be, pretty full with running backs.
Mace, correct me if I'm wrong. Was it Mel Kiper that was talking about the difference between Omarion Hampton and Ashton Jeanty? Now, there's some that say it's not as great. I believe Mel said that. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Where it's like, hey, that's not really that much of a talent gap. Others say like there's quite a bit of gap between Jeanty and then the top of the second tier of running backs, if Hampton is even in the second tier, or maybe he's the first tier. Chad, where do you come down on the Jeanty and everybody else being really good?
I think Jeanty is far and away the best. I like Hampton a lot. I think he's going to be a really good pick for somebody, but I think the combination of Jeanty's vision, speed, power, all the above, I just think he's too good. I just think he's a kind of a cut above everybody else. And then it's Hampton. And then there's a little bit of a gap again, I think. And you're going to be seeing some guys go in round 2 that are good and they're going to contribute and all that, but they're not special. So I think there's actually 2 gaps,
Could Hampton be special in the Broncos offense?
Potentially. And I've put some thought into that and whether they would go that direction or not if they don't trade up. But I think there's probably better value at other places. Like, to me, I don't have a problem taking a running back in the top 10. But at the end of the first round, if he's not in your true first round guys, top 20 kind of guy, then maybe back off and come down the hill a little bit. But look, at 20, if he's the top guy on their board, great. I mean, he's a powerful back. He's certainly got that burst in the open field you love to see. I mean, he's going to be a good pro. But if I measure him against some of the wideouts and, maybe if Loveland falls there, then you get him. There's a lot of guys that could be in the mix at that 20 spot. So, and it's hard for me to use that. Najee Harris went in the first round. Yeah. Is that really where his best value was? It's really tough. So especially in a year where it's pretty deep at the position. So, I think a team like the Steelers would probably take him in round 1 because they need that identity. They need that. And maybe Denver does too. But to be honest with you, I don't know. I think Bo Nix is the identity of that offense. And you want a better running back. That's for sure. You want that to help him. But you don't need that for the identity of the offense, I don't think. I think you could do that with other backs that are pretty talented.
Okay, what if Sean Payton gets wild, though? You mentioned his first-round trade. Some work out, some do not. But what if the trade up, and it's a larger trade up than you had for Tyler Warren in your most recent mock? Yeah. What if it is for Jeanty? What if that's if Sean falls in love with a guy and it's Jeanty?
Yeah,
I mean that's a 1,500 all-purpose yard guy year 1, much like Alvin Kamara was when he was a rookie and had 81 catches and 120 carries.
Yeah, you have to give up a lot, and the problem is when Peyton's with the Saints, they were willing to give up a lot. They gave up a first-round pick to get Marcus Davenport. Okay, so it's possible that happens, but I don't project that because that's a lot of draft capital to give up for a non-quarterback. You've seen some like Will Anderson, Houston gave up a lot for that. At a premium position like edge rusher and especially kind of talent like that, it's possible. It's certainly possible, but the team also has to move out. I mean, Denver wants to move in, but the Raiders or Jacksonville or whoever will have to want to move out. And I don't see that happening. I think Pete Carroll wants Ashton Jeanty so bad he can taste it at 6. And I just don't see the Jaguars moving all the way down to 20 in a deal like that. It's hard for me to imagine that.
Chad, you said something a moment ago that really stuck with me. You said, Bo Nix is basically he's the identity of the Broncos. It's Bo Nix's team. Yeah. So to that end, the Broncos pick probably needs to be the person who helps Bo Nix the most, helps
Mhm.
that identity. So to that end, who is the one player that the Broncos can realistically get who would most help Bo Nix?
I think it's Tyler Warren, because not only does he help on that side, but he also helps on the run side. And I think that's why I project that move. I think you've got to have a reliable safety valve for Nix, but also a pretty good red zone threat. And he can also get down the seam. So like he does a little bit of everything. And we've seen what Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce have done. We've seen what George Kittle has done in San Francisco. That's so valuable when you have a guy that can, either be a great receiver or a great blocker or both. I just think he would be the one guy that really moves the needle in this draft. So for this team. So I think that's it.
He is Chad Reuter from NFL Network. I also call him Hercules, because it's so awesome talking to the man. My final question for you, Chad, and we certainly appreciate your time here on Orange and Blue today. It has to do with Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Tell us how you were right about Nix. Tell us how you were wrong about Nix, because we had talked about Nix last year leading up to the draft. Now with the year under our belts, what did you like? Where did you hit on Nix? Where did you miss on Nix in pre-draft eval?
Well, I mean, look, we knew this guy wasn't perfect, right? Like people didn't even want to put him in the first round of their mock drafts, right? Because you saw the inconsistency while he was at Auburn, where he was trying to make too much happen. He wasn't as accurate, but look, he's at Oregon. He's making all the plays. And I think he still has some things to learn about reading defenses, making sure he's putting the ball in the right spot. He has some things to learn. But look, he's a gamer. You know that Sean Payton's gonna, and Payton said it himself, like, he's ready to go. I don't have to lose sleep over Bo Nix, or he lost something like that. To paraphrase him, he's something like that. I'm good with that guy leading my offense, right? And I think you saw that. I saw a guy that steps in, and the moment isn't too big for him, right? And at times at crunch time, he's a rookie. He's going to make mistakes. And as he grows in that position, and as they improve some of the weapons around him a little bit, he's just going to continue to get better. So, it's just, look, I like going against the grain on stuff. That's what I do. And when, Nix was getting killed by people in the thing, I just had to go the other way because I saw there's a chance he's going to be pretty good. So we'll see. 1 year is not enough to really know, but a lot of good things being shown there, and hopefully he'll continue.
And last one from me. For Bo, though, how important was it, and even for the other rookie quarterbacks as well, how important was scheme, coaching, environment in terms of him being all that he could be?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You're working with Sean Payton. That's pretty good. Day one, right? What more can you ask for? And some guys, ask Chicago Bear fans what if coaching and environment and all that have anything to do with how a quarterback turns out, right? They've been through 30 of them since the Packers have had 3, right? I mean, that's what we talk about here in Wisconsin. There are T-shirts that list all the Bears quarterbacks since 1992 on them, and they need the front and the back for it, okay? And it just seems like if you don't have everything in place for a guy, it's really difficult. A lot of people didn't like what Justin Herbert was like at Oregon before, and people thought he was overdrafted. Well, you put a lot of talented receivers around him and a good coach, and he looked pretty good. And also a tight end. He had Hunter Henry, and that made him look pretty good early on, right? So, I again, with the Tyler Warren thing, I think, we're seeing that. But the quarterback situation is so important. The situation around that guy is so important. Lamar Jackson goes anywhere else, who knows what happens? But the Ravens built the offense around. They worked with him. Greg Roman worked with him to put the offense together that maximizes his strengths. And so I think that's a huge part of the equation that doesn't really get talked about enough.
And I don't want to give any of us any more work. However, if we were to start a podcast, because us 3 big Star Wars nerds, big football nerds, imagine we could sit around, we could have a couple of cold pops, and we should call it like the Force and football, or the football Force. Maybe we're
Yeah.
the football force. I don't know.
Yeah,
Sounds
that's
good,
pretty
right?
good. That's pretty good. We'll have to consider that.
You should have been in on our Rico Lay discussion.
Oh, dude, at the combine, we had a discussion about Rico Lay and
Oh, boy.
like the future of Rico Lay, how
Mm.
he, tipped the emperor off as to who Leo could have been.
Mhm,
With awesome
mhm.
fanfic moment at Steak and Shake.
I can't even nerd at that level. I really can't. I mean, it's just too much.
Okay.
I'm just going to be happy when the new series comes out April 22nd on Disney Plus. That's going to be
or two.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it already.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to another chat with Chad Reuter. He is from NFL Network. You can follow him on whatever at Chad_Reuter. I always
Correct.
misspell your name. I get it right because I think I misspell it, and then I spell it right.
It's just like Writers News Service, REUTER. Yeah, and I'm on the Twitter. I'm not going to call it the other. And I will be on NFL.com. I've got some articles coming out about trades, about ideal picks, a 5-round mock draft in a couple weeks, and then the big 7-round a couple weeks after that, Friday before the draft. So, if you want to get nuts, let's get nuts.
There you go. He's Chad Reuter, everybody. He's Andrew Mace. Before we're out of here, and this is where Chad gets more uncomfortable. How do folks help us out on YouTube?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you
never
miss
vid.
These are the traditions, Chad. This
Yeah,
is what we do. All right, he's Mace. Follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying OBT's BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.